John was working in his science lab, got blasted by gamma rays. Now he's Smash Trivia John, always smashing. He's friends with Ruffalo, crushing on Maslany, and also Sydney Sweeney. John's here saying, hello my gamma friends, welcome to the show, the Gamma Analysis Podcast.
Smash.
Hello, my Gamma friends. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia. I'll be the one with the big old green head in the profile picture. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, I'm going to review everything Hulk on the movies, TV shows, and has to do random other geeky films. Hope you enjoy Smash Trivia Presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening to please do sign for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all your friends. If you don't, Hulk will be angry. Now let's smash right into this episode. Today we're reviewing a Little Shop of Horrors with my friend Ethan, aka Sloth from TikTok. How you doing, Ethan?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So this film is a film I've been wanting to watch for a long time. I'm glad that you wanted to come on for this because you gave me the chance to finally watch it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think there's some absolutely fantastic songs in it. Honestly,
right? Yeah.
The idea of a horror comedy musical is one that I always love whenever I see films that are like that.
Right. Yeah. Horror musicals are a little bit hard to come by, but there's Sweeney Todd. There's there's horror themed musicals. Like there's Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I know you did an episode on.
Which I think this has it's definitely a very different film, but I think there's a kind of similar tone with this as with Rocky Horror Picture.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a similar vibe. I can get that.
Yeah, which is cool. So going into this, I didn't really know much about it other than that there's a killer plant, I think that all of the different cameos in it are really fun. It's so cool seeing a young Steve Martin in this. I don't usually watch much stuff this early in Steve Martin's career. And there's Bill Murray and John Candy. It's great. And also I love of it, even though he doesn't actually appear in the film, the director being Frank Oz, the voice of Yoda.
Right, and Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy and Bert and various Muppet characters. Big collaborator with Jim Henson.
Oh yeah, definitely. After seeing this film, I want on Disney to let Frank Oz direct a Star Wars film, where he can star as Yoda. I think that would be really cool.
I think I would enjoy that too. He's a very good director. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know if he's directed a ton of movies, but he also directed one of the Muppet movies. He directed Muppets Take Manhattan, which is a pretty good Muppet movie. Mm-hmm. I love the Muppets. I love the Muppets a lot.
Oh, I love part of my Muppets personality. Too. I love them too. There's so much fun stuff that you have with the Muppets, I'm pretty sure Jim Henson actually helped with this film for creating the Aubrey 2 to plant.
I believe it. It looks amazing. I mean, it's so much more impressive than I imagine if they did it today, they might do it with CGI and it wouldn't look near as good. It looks so impressive with the puppet.
Oh yeah, definitely. Starting while watching this, that they're near the end, and as we see all of the Aubrey 2s going around causing mayhem, and it made me honestly really want to see a sort of sequel to this be made, where it's about a couple of people trying to survive this invasion of these killer plants, but the killer plants are singing the whole time. I think that would make for such a fun film.
That would actually be great. I've thought of that before, like a Dawn of the Dead style, like it's a post-apocalyptic or like apocalyptic movie. But it's Audrey 2's. That would be amazing.
And there's just and like just the idea of an invasion style movie where you have a whole bunch of an enemy like attacking a city, but that enemy is singing the whole time. Just sounds so cool.
Sounds like the guy who didn't like musicals. Are you familiar with that?
I know I've never heard of that.
Um, I was a theater kid in high school,
Uh-huh.
which is why I have such a connection to this movie partially. But there's this musical on YouTube by this group called Team Star Kid that releases musicals for YouTube. And one of their musicals was called The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals. And it's about these singing aliens that invade Earth, and
That's cool.
they make the Earth become a musical, and it's very goofy and very silly, much like this, much like Little Shop
I
of
love
Horrors.
that. That's cool. That's really cool. It's always nice seeing a Rick Moranis is, especially since like he doesn't act much anymore. Or so it's always cool getting to see a film that I hadn't seen before with him in it, and also seeing this is the first time I've ever seen him actually as the lead of a film, which is really cool.
Yeah, and he kind of kills it.
Oh
He's
yeah,
he's real good.
absolutely.
I think
He,
his singing voice, his vocals could be stronger, but in terms
mhm.
of acting, he's perfect for the role.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's absolutely perfect. I like that was one thing that actually going into the film I was like a little bit hesitant about is him actually leading a film because like the main thing I've seen him in is Ghostbusters and and he has a similar personality in this as his character in Ghostbusters, but that character in Ghostbusters definitely doesn't feel like a character that could be a lead in a film.
Right, right, yeah. Um, but yeah, the meek shall inherit, I guess, you know? Um,
No.
I feel like I know him mostly from this movie, Ghostbusters and Spaceballs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I love all of those. I there's also like that movie. I Shrunk the Kids.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, yeah.
Which I think I saw part of that as a kid. I don't think I ever actually saw the whole thing. But yeah, I love Rick Moranis. It's you know I mentioned a bit ago about how a young Steve Martin being in this film. That was such a fun character. Or the dentist is, and it made me think that young Steve Martin would have been amazing playing the Joker.
He Funny you would say that. Are you familiar with like the history of this movie and how it's like based on a stage musical that was itself based on a movie?
Yeah, I've heard that.
So in the original Roger Corman like cheesy B movie that this is based on, the Bill Murray character, who's like the masochistic dental patient,
Mhm.
um, was played by none other than Jack Nicholson in one of his first film roles.
That's really cool.
So like, and Jack Nicholson went on to become the Joker, so that's why
Mhm.
that came to mind.
Oh,
Um, the Bill Murray scene is so much fun. I love
oh
that scene
yeah,
so much. His
absolutely.
chemistry with Steve Martin and the sadist and the masochist like
Oh yeah.
dynamic is so funny.
It's absolutely great. Yeah. The I think what else about this film do I really want mention? I think it's cool how this film like really he makes a point and drives home this idea of how awful it is abusive relationships and how hard it can be to get out of them.
Right. You may not know this about me. I'm gonna get personal for a second. I got out of an abusive relationship about 6 months ago, And this film gets a lot of things right. Like for like such a goofy, campy film, it has a lot of emotional depth and pathos.
Hmm.
And I relate a lot to Audrey, and her journey, and like a lot of the like elements of that are very true to real life. Like the denial and the fact that she's like in denial that he's abusive,
Hmm.
and like whenever someone is like maybe you shouldn't be with him, she's like but I love him, and that's a very relatable struggle.
Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm glad you were able to get out of it.
I mean, yeah, no, I'm doing much better now, so thank you.
Well,
I also think that Ellen Green, the actress who plays Audrey, she also played her in the original off-Broadway stage show, and
that's
she's,
really cool.
I think, like as good as Rick Moranis and as good as Steve Martin are. I
Hmm.
think she's the real MVP in the cast, in my opinion. She's so amazing, especially
Oh sure,
vocally.
she's definitely really good in film too. Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I think all of the actors are really good in this.
Yeah, it's a very strong cast.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, oh, even like the voice for the voice for Audrey too. It was is so perfect. So
Yeah.
what songs do you think would be your favorite from the film?
Um, I really love both of the songs of the plant, or the two main songs of the plant things,
Hmm.
"Feed Me" and "Mean Green Mother," which was
Oh
actually
yeah.
added for the movie. It wasn't in the stage show, but it was written by the same guys who made the Alan Menken and
Hmm.
Howard Ashman, who made the
Yeah.
music for the stage show. But also Suddenly Seymour. I really love Suddenly Seymour.
Oh yeah. Those are definitely some really good ones. I think for me, it would be both the songs from Audrey 2 that you mentioned, and also the also um Steve Martin's and song as the dentist. I love Steve Martin singing so much.
Right, and it's such a well staged musical number too. Like,
Hmm.
and I love how it ends with what a brilliant transition of the guy spitting, transitioning to someone throwing bucket of water into the
Hmm.
alley. That was really clever.
And it reminded me of when Steve Martin sings during the Only Murders in the Building show. Have you ever watched that show?
No, but my I know people who have, and I've heard it's good.
Oh yeah, it's great. And he like in one of the seasons he's doing a play because his character in the film is an actor, or in the show is an actor, and he's doing a play in it, and we get like in one of the episodes a whole performance of one of these songs from the play, and it's a song about him where he's playing a detective that is accusing babies of murder.
That's pretty funny, actually. I assume that's not a real play, but
Yeah, no, it's a play that and one of the characters in the show came up with, and and it was like mixing multiple things together, other into some mishmash thing. And it was absolutely hilarious. But
right,
also
yeah.
just also, even though it's like this hilarious, ridiculous thing, he was able to able he sung it in a way as if it were actually a real song on out of a play, and it just sounded so good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a very good singer. He's got a good voice.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Oh,
That character is simultaneously the dentist is simultaneously so horrifying and so funny.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I love how he like is like instead of giving the laughing gas to the patient, he gives the laughing gas to himself.
Oh yeah, which that's a big reason that I was like, I feel like you'd be so good as the Joker.
Oh yeah, because he did remind me of the Joker. I did the
Hmm.
Joker did come to mind when he did the laughing gas thing.
Yeah, like this absolutely feels like something the Joker would do. Like there's definitely some things you would remove from the role if you were to be playing the Joker, but I think for the most part, a lot of this personality could fit the Joker really well. It's just it's so fun on to watch yeah. Now the shopkeep, Abe, I
Mushnik.
yeah, I'm all the times that he like is bringing up to Audrey about how he doesn't think her boyfriend is a good guy. Do you think that's him genuinely caring about her, or he wants to be with her?
Ooh, I didn't consider that.
I don't know. I
Um,
like
I don't. That's not the vibe I
everything.
got.
I don't know because everywhere else, every other place in the film, he doesn't feel like a caring guy. So that's why I'm like, I feel like he has some kind of ulterior motive in it,
Hmm.
if that makes
I don't
sense.
know. I think an unkind person can have kind moments.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think, even though he's like pretty nasty to like Seymour, um, he is nicer, not necessarily that much nicer to Audrey, but a little bit nicer to Audrey.
Mhm. Makes
Um,
sense.
I don't know. I think this is a film about like that's largely about abusive relationships, and there are sort of
Hmm.
three key abusive relationships in the movie. There's obviously the most obvious one is Audrey and the dentist, but there's also Mushnick's sort of abusive like parental slash workplace relationship with Seymour, and then of course there's the plant and Seymour,
Hmm.
um, and that sort of predatory relationship.
Oh,
So I think this film has a lot to say about abusive
yeah.
dynamics.
Absolutely. Oh, one thing near the end of the film that I thought like Seymour was so stupid in doing is when he tells the plant he's gonna go get him some meat to eat instead of humans. Seymour should have just taken his bags with him and immediately went across the street and to go grab Audrey, and then they just leave. Like that's what he should have done in that moment instead of like actually leaving to go get food for Audrey too. I think that would then in turn stop up there being a chance of Audrey two calling Audrey on the phone and getting her to come so they can eat her.
I can understand that, but I think also the reason why he does get the meat for the plant is because he thinks that the plant is the reason why he keeps having the fortune. The good things happen to him, and also he thinks that his son's success is what's attracting Audrey. Um, there's sort of it's cut from the movie, but in the stage show, there's an extended bit to the Meek Shall Inherit song, where he expresses that exact sentiment that Audrey um, that he's going to keep signing these offers and keep working with the plant because he's worried that Audrey won't love him if he doesn't have these good fortune that comes with the plant.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. No, I find it funny how easily Audrey died. I'd like that. I feel like it would take a little bit more for it to kill, but okay.
Right. It does seem like a rather like shallow wound. Like
Like if you are if she's able to stand up for a little bit before falling to the ground, I feel like chances are she's just passed out, not actually dead.
right.
And
I feel like
he
yeah.
just fed the plant and her thinking she's dead even though she's not. Not
Right. I feel like that's kind of that like B movie like silliness
um,
that this movie's
uh,
like very styled like a B movie. I mean, because it's based on a B movie,
makes
the
sense.
Roger Corman film. Um, and it's a sci-fi B movie with a lot of
Oh yeah,
silliness in it.
and I'm not trying to say that that makes the film worse or anything. I just think that's funny to think about.
It is funny to think about, yeah. Um, yeah, I love this movie so
Oh
much.
yeah,
It's so campy, and yet it has a real emotional core to it with the main characters.
oh yeah, absolutely. I really wish more Broadway plays would be adapted into movies. It's like like there's the Mean Girls one, there's Wicked, but there's really not a lot of others that have been done. I'm really hoping in future years we get a lot more of them. One particular one I want to see you get a movie adaptation of is the Beetlejuice musical because I absolutely love the Beetlejuice musical.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I've listened to the soundtrack. It's pretty
It's
fun.
yeah, it's that's the only like Broadway play I've ever actually seen.
Oh
And it was
yeah,
so cool again to see that and absolutely hilarious.
right. Um, I do think we're gonna see a resurgence of musical movies just because Wicked was such a
Hmm.
big financial and critical success.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, I think between like Wicked and like the recent West Side Story, like I think musicals are having a bit of a
Oh yeah.
comeback.
I'm really happy about that because I love watching musicals. They're always so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I also love musicals. Again, theater kid. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, One thing that surprised me on rewatching Little Shop of Horrors, I hadn't seen it since like high school,
Hmm.
was how political it is, or like the social commentary on like capitalism, particularly in the ending, where it's ultimately the corporate greed that leads to this guy taking clippings and then selling them across the nation. Um,
Oh yeah.
and like I feel like it's making a direct statement on like the American dream, particularly because when before the finale song, after Seymour is eaten by the plant, you see the big American flag, and then you see the chorus ladies rise
Oh
up in
yeah.
front of it.
Oh yeah. And they have how because of Audrey not having a good like upbringing that taught her that she can want like an actual freeing life for herself. Of her idea of a perfect life is the stereotypical 50s housewife.
Right, because that's what she's been taught to want,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is really
which is
sad.
also like also a political statement. Them particularly having that, while also making a point to say that say that a there's a reason for why she's like this. It's of her upbringing and how and not having had proper people to look up to who can tell her like, hey, you don't have to want a restricted a kind of life.
Right. I mean, Audrey just suffers from she's just got very low self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
which is why, she's afraid to leave her relationship with Oren, the dentist,
Oh yeah.
is because she doesn't think that she deserves anything better. She doesn't think that she
Oh yeah.
deserves a nice person like Seymour. And that's so tragic.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's um yeah, and I think Seymour has the exact same kind of problem. And um, he also doesn't have the confidence in himself since, and as you said, like he doesn't believe that she would love him if he's not successful.
Right. I think this film says a lot about like success and like also about like socioeconomic like economic inequality in that Skid
Mm-hmm.
Row song. About
Oh,
how the people they cater they go uptown and cater to the rich people, disinfect their bathroom floors, but then they come home to cruddy Skid Row, and how
mm-hmm.
the whole song's about the want to get out of there,
Oh yeah.
and how ultimately it's impossible to get out of Skid Row, and even your attempts to like Seymour's attempt to get out of Skid Row, using the plant, he has to do horrible things to get ahead, but he still can't get ahead. It's just a trick.
Oh yeah, it's the it is the imprisonment that the rich want to keep us in, and that's absolutely another political aspect of this film. But it's like I am very much of the belief that every film, every story from the beginning of time is political in some way, and it's absolutely insane that there and that nowadays there's people who whine, being like, "Oh, things are so political now."
Yeah.
Do you really think the films from your childhood were not political?
Yeah, I completely agree.
You look at like old Disney cartoons, and you have little propaganda cartoons during I think it was like either the Cold War or the Vietnam War, or where Mickey Mouse gets it's sent to war and gets shot in the head. Like that is a legit thing that Disney made. You have back in like the 30s, is Bambi is a very anti-hunting film.
Right, it's a environmentalist. Yeah.
Like I don't know how people don't think that it's this
Right.
new awful thing for films to be political, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
it's everything has a deeper meaning in it. Some people are just too dumb to be able to find those deeper meanings.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. It is bizarre to hear people complaining about politics in movies. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and
Mm-hmm.
with the new Star Trek shows, people were like, "Why is it political? Why is it woke?" And it's funny because Star Trek has always been political from its inception. That the show in the '60s was extremely political.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Star Trek has always been about politics, and I feel like that's true of just most media, like all media, really.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Art is inherently political.
You know, look. Star Wars as well. They say the same thing about Star Wars, and as Star Wars, the original trilogy was literally based on George Lucas's time in the Vietnam War, or and he's and it is and the film is basically saying how America was the bad guys in that.
It is. I'm not familiar
Oh
without
yeah,
reading a Star Wars, but that's
yeah.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
he has he's actually done in like a interview thing where he talked. I think it might have been with Steven Spielberg, where they were talking about Star Wars and its political aspects, about how he created it as his way to comment on the Vietnam War, and how America is the empire, and the Vietnamese are the rebels.
Huh. I've never like I need to rewatch Star Wars now, I guess, with that knowledge. Yeah, because that totally changes like the read of the movie.
Oh yeah, and it's like, but there'll be people that are like who think it only just became political. It's like, no, you were just too dumb to be able to understand it back when you watched it in the '70s or whatever.
Yeah.
And I like, and people being too dumb to who knows things like that doesn't make you a bad person or anything. It's just that you become a bad person when you start complaining that there's politics and and things. It's like because it shows where you actually lie politically, and you have probably some pretty bad politics yourself.
Right. Like I always say that people or artists who say that they're apolitical, usually they're just afraid to admit what their politics are.
Oh yeah, and it's and they also like, Hollywood is so against people being right wing. They'll throw you out if you're right wing. There are people who are openly right wing in Hollywood, and they're not having any trouble at all. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a Republican. He was literally the Republican governor of California in the early 2000s, and he's never had a single issue, mainly because us like he has, even though he's right wing, he's not. He's like he's his politics are like very classical Republican, and not the new version of Republican where it's just you're a bigot.
Yeah. And also I think that there are like mainstream Hollywood movies that I would consider to have conservative messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Recently was Top Gun Maverick. I found that film to be quite conservative, which is why I wasn't fond of it, even though it's like it's well made film, but like that's an example of a conservative film that I think was well received and made a lot of money.
Another which I haven't seen this film. I have no plans to see this film, but I've heard it has a very conservative feel. Is Oppenheimer?
I agree with that statement. I actually I just made a TikTok about Christopher Nolan's politics.
Oh yeah, I think that your video might have been what made me think that.
Oh really? You
Yeah,
saw it? Yeah.
I think that might have been yeah. Like because it was something recently talking about his politics. Yeah,
That might have been me. Yeah.
uh, um, like I think the thing that like people who are particularly trying to make like right leaning films, which I honestly do not think that Christopher Nolan is particularly trying to. What I mean by that is like you compare a sign like his films to like the hundreds of crappy Christian movies that come out all the time, or like those crappy Daily Wire films. Is the difference being that he's willing to have characters change in this film versus a lot of people, particularly trying to make right wing stuff. They they don't want to let their characters change because they can't. They refuse to let their characters be wrong about anything.
Right. I guess that's the difference between like art and just straight up propaganda.
Yeah, like and if you're not willing to let your character be wrong about something so that they can change and become better, then you're always going to have a bad film because it's no longer an interesting story then.
Right. It's no longer realistic because people in real
Mm-hmm.
life change all the time.
If someone wanted to make a right leaning film and actually have that the characters have that it's trying to push right wing values as correct, then if anything, they need to have that the start of their film, their main character is a left leaning person, and then they come to change to become a right leaning person.
Yeah, so there's more of a character arc.
Yeah, so yeah, because and it may not actually be accurate to real life, but but it is there makes it so there's some kind of change in the film, so there is a kind of compelling narrative. I guess.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference. Like like he may end up making his films conservative, but I don't think he's like particularly trying to make conservative propaganda. Is the difference?
No, I don't either. I think his films sort of lean right,
yeah.
but
Definitely see that.
I think he definitely puts story and character first before before messaging. So
it's funny, like I these right wingers who complain about politics and films, like compare any left leaning film to those particularly right wing propaganda films like Lady Ballers on from Daily Wire, and it's very obvious that the ones made by those right wingers trying to create propaganda are the ones that actually feel like they're shoehorning stuff into it, and versus the left leaning films, they're just making their characters be good characters, and they're having, and they also usually have a good story along with it. Like the Barbie movie. Ari movie is a very political film, but you cannot say it's propaganda because it's because us the characters are the most important thing, not just being about politics.
Right, I agree. Yeah, it's really authenticity that makes the difference.
Yeah.
If your story feels authentic, or whether it feels super manufactured.
And and also, it's not putting politics in a film just them allowing characters to be women, or allowing characters to be gay, or black, or whatever. It's like, no, that's not political. That is just part of how reality is. These people exist.
It just happens that people of color and gay people and whatnot and women exist in the real world.
It's like, why do you want on films to not be realistic? Other than being obviously they're being racist, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I have gone on way too much of a ramble about this. Is there any final things you'd like to say about the Little Shop of Horrors?
I love this movie. It's super practically and visually impressive. From a musical perspective, it's super great. From a critique of capitalism perspective, it's really interesting, and the characters are really fleshed out and likable and lovable, or hateable when they need to be, and it's funny and it's sweet. It's kind of it balances a lot of tones, I think, very well, and it's a great movie in my opinion.
Absolutely, I think it's a great film too. I will say, I do think it's a film where it takes a little bit of time to get into it, but once you're into it, it's so much fun.
I can see that. Yeah, it is like at first it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I have like the first 10-15 minutes into the film, I'm like, I'm not really into this, but then after that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm enjoying all of this.
Right, it takes a little bit to get on its wavelength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's really everything to talk about for this episode. So everyone, please check out Ethan, aka Cinema Sloth, on TikTok. He has great content. I bet you'll like it. That's really everything I have to say for this episode. Any last words you'd like to say as I end this off?
Feed me Seymour. That's it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you like this game analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. I'd love your thoughts on the episodes. Please let me know. If you like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more game analysis from me coming, so keep on the lookout. This game is your host, Smash Ray John, signing off.